Hey, good morning, everybody. Robert Phoenix back again with you for another edition of 15 Minutes of Flame. How is everybody today? Another day in paradise, isn't it? Yes, indeed. The waves are rolling, they're crashing. The smell of salt in the air. If you were here, you could actually hear the seabirds. We have a combination of seabirds and tropical birds. It's quite lovely here. Quite lovely. And I just met my buddy Manolo. He walks on the beach every day. We said hi to each other. I think he might be into Gurdjieff. I think Manolo might be a Gurdjieffian because he's very steady with his steps on the beach. I think he's trying to walk himself into a trance. It's taken me about a week or so to get his attention, and we talk a little bit now. I've broken the trance. Anyway, how is everybody today? It is the 30th. We're about ready to hit Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. You know, Mayday is the actual first day of the vaccinations that were associated with polio. And I'm going to cover that tomorrow. We've got Sonia Barrett for an hour tomorrow. And then I'm going to dive into as much as I can with the first polio vaccinations that were going nationwide at the time, May 1st. It's going to be an interesting show. And look at the fallout of those vaccines. And here we are again. You know, so that was 1940, was it 1954? Let me just check here. You do a little checky check. I think it's interesting that they chose May 1st as the day to launch the national vaccination program. Absolutely. And we all know that it's Commie Day, that the industrial workers of the world. It's also Maypole Day. It's a celebration of the phallus. Do you remember when Russia used to parade its missiles on May Day? They'd have that big parade in Moscow. And who even knows if those missiles really worked? You know, I mean, we assumed that they actually worked. We assumed that they were real missiles. We don't know. We have no idea, really. Let's see. International Workers' Day, May 1st. May Day, May 1st. I'm really trying to just get to May 1st on the freaking Wikipedia calendar. Let me just see if I can do that. It's kind of an interesting day in some ways. Oh, look who's here. Look who's here. It's Jasper. It's Jasper. The Astrocat is here. There he is. I asked him today if he's going to be on the show today. And I said, listen, man, we need you. We need you. Here he is. All right, before I jump into the May 1st stuff, let's just do a quick little prayer here. Lynn suggested that I kind of improv the prayer because or the invocation, because it was I did it before the webinar on Saturday, and she said it felt more kind of heartfelt. So I'll give it a shot today. So let me just get into my prayer space to protect the space for myself and for you, everybody that's watching this video. It's very important that we keep the waves, the wavelengths as high as at a highest vibration as possible. So, dear blessed and holy Father, Mother God of the great central sun, which is the universal light, which is the light of Sananda Emmanuel, we give you this broadcast today to protect us and bring the highest vibration possible through this transmission, and that only the highest and best information come through. And then if there is any karmic residue or any energy that needs to be siphoned off, transmuted, resolved, and removed, let it be done, and let it be so. In the name of Sananda Emmanuel, Yeshua, we thank you. We thank you. We thank you. We give thanks. God bless. Amen. Love one all. There we go. There is the invocation. All right. Let me check in with the Chatlanders and let's see what's going on. Let's see what's happening. There's Leanne. There's Anna. There's Joan. There's Michael. Oh, Michael, you're a refugee, man. Michael, we got to bust you out of California, brother. There's Jennifer. Hey, Jennifer. There's a Jennifer. We got to get you out of SoCal too. Christine, Judy, Carrie. Hi, Carrie. Tamara. Hi, Tamara. Joe Mama. Hey, there's Cheryl. Nice to see you, Cheryl. 10 Dragon. There's Leah. Michelle. Hello. Judy. I don't know what the South Dakota Congress is doing, but I'm getting ready to do a little profile on the governor of South Dakota. Bust me out of California too. We're gonna have, you know what? There's Mary. Hi, Mary. There's Marlene. I need to remember to ground and protect more. Always in my head. Yeah, I think it's pretty good that we all kind of ground and protect and try to stay as grounded as possible. There's Beverly. We got some wise Beverlys in here, but she's Beverly Wise. Then there's Donna. Hello, Donna. Yeah. So we're going to talk about California today. We're going to talk about a couple of other states too. And I think the states that we're talking about are states of bondage, states of imprisonment. That's what we're talking about here. Let me just do this real quick. Welcome to the show today. Jasper responded. I said to him, I said, listen, man, we need you. We need you as part of the show. And here he is. Jasper's earning his cat food. Jasper is earning his cat food. So the day that the polio vaccine, 1956. So that's 4 years. So it'd be the 64th year or the 64th anniversary of the start of the polio vaccinations. You know what else happened on May 1st? In 1967, Elvis and Priscilla Presley got married on May 1st on May Day in Vegas. They've been living together for a long time. But the uncle or the Colonel Tom Parker, said that they had to become a proper married couple. Anything else interesting happened on May 1st? Let's see. Anything else? Yeah, there's a bunch of other stuff. A lot of like very early history on May 1st. Let's see. Oh, 1961, Castro basically establishes Cuba and abolishes elections. There we go. Taking full advantage of international workers of the world. And in 65, I guess there was a battle at Dong Yin, a naval conflict between the Republic of China and the People's Republic of China. Interesting. Very interesting. Well, China's in the news, obviously. We're talking a bit about China today. And then tomorrow marks the death of Ayrton Senna, whom I've talked about before. And Ayrton Senna was a very interesting character for a number of different reasons, even including his death. Oh, in 1999, probably one of the most important days associated with May 1st. It is the premiere of SpongeBob SquarePants, which has been a major cultural addition. Anyway, that's your May 1st days throughout history. Oh, yeah. In 1960, it was the day that Francis Gary Powers was shot down in a U-2 spy plane. Let me check back in. Let's see what Judy has on the South Dakota stuff, because I did ask about it. Let's see if she's got anything in there. Let's see. There's Christy. Hey, Christy. Good to see you. JW. Okay, who else? Uncle Glenn in the house. Way to go, Uncle Glenn. Nice to see you. Skull on Warhol's shoulder. Good evening. Hey, what's going on down under? Nice to see you. Southern Matrix. Beautiful. My credit union informed me yesterday that I won't be allowed into the building unless I wear a freaking mask. Hey, there's Claire. Hi, Claire. Another refugee from California. Costco. I know. I was going to talk about Costco. Oh, look at Judy. She's bringing the info today. She's got the 411. Congress is passing laws to allow the state to opt out of health or vaccine mandates. Yes. Yes. Hey, Paulo, good to see you. Good to see you. Way to be a part of the show. My good friend Paul Netton, a part of the broadcast today. Yurat Green, I'm new to your channel. Welcome, Yurat. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Fifth wall, I'm buying a burqa. Well, you know what's interesting about the whole burqa? I mean, isn't that kind of like the underlying meme here is that if you wear a mask, you're like kind of one step away from a burqa? You know that they're turning everybody into Muslims. And so, I mean, I'm not look, and I'm not. I am not like thrown down against Muslims. I'm not. But if you look at it, it kind of looks like that, right? It's like everybody, we're all Muslims now. We're all, because the church is shut down. What's really interesting too is that De Blasio, and I saw this on Tucker last night, and Tucker's I think he's just such a superstar. He's just totally getting it. He's total, and I just, I don't care if he's an elite. I don't care if he comes from the Swanson family food fortune. I don't care if he's out there to be some kind of, release valve or pressure valve or controlled. I really don't care because the guy, to me, he just resonates. And he has this doofus doctor on every night. Mark is his name, Mark Stein or something like that. He's this guy. He's a surgeon or some high mucky muck doctor at one of the hospitals in New York City. You have him on every night and talking about COVID-19. He likes to call it COVID-19. COVID-19. Tucker, not only that, but we're coming along very well with the vaccine. It's looking very good, Tucker. And we might actually have a vaccine here. And I'm just thinking, like, I can tell Tucker is inside saying, I can't wait for this fucking interview to be over. I can't wait. He does not interact with him very much. He lets him talk. He lets him do his thing. And he says, yes, these are very important issues. Tucker has mastered the art of allowing Fox to bring these shills on his program and then not really give them anything more than their allotted time, like this guy. And this guy's been through, he had COVID-19. His father had COVID. There's the ongoing drama, the story within the story, the saga of it. And it's and every time he comes on, he starts pimping out the vaccine. And then remdesivir, that's the new drug that they're pimping. That's Gilead Sciences. They're the one that's bringing that out. So, but Tucker was on. He's on this, man. He's totally on it, and he is understanding the level of alarm of what's taking place now. He's getting it. He totally gets it, and he basically says we've just woken up into this kind of 21st century model of tyrannical governing, and he really has been just slamming the governors and some of the mayors, but mostly the governors. And he did a number last night on the governor from Maine. I mean, these people are fucking out of control. I'm sorry, they're out of control, and they're going to be in for they're going to be in for trouble. They're going to have trouble on their hands because people are not going to. They're not going to, I think, ultimately bend to their tyrannical proclamations. It's just not going to happen. And some people say, well, no, people are sheep. I'm telling you right now, I've looked at the astrology for the summer with with Mars and Aries and the big Mars squares to Pluto, to Jupiter, and even to Saturn. Like, it's going to get heavy. It's going to get very heavy during the summertime. If some of these states don't let off the pressure, if they don't let off the brakes, they're in for trouble. I'm not saying go out and overthrow the state of California. I'm just reading how this thing is going to go down. Thanks, Jasper. Thanks for being a part of the show. Probably see him again. So let me get into some of the state stuff because I think you'll see what I'm talking about here when I bring it in. Why don't we start with Let's start with Gavin Newsom. Let's start with him. I don't want this. Hold on. I got to play this for you. We have entered into a new realm, an absolutely new realm of just absurd theater. I got to show this to you guys. All right, you got to see this. This is crazy. This is high crazy. Hold on a second. I got to go back. Hold on. This is just nuts. So they're talking about Newsome. They're talking about Newsome, and they're talking about what the plan is or the non-plan. Anyway, keep your eye on the newscaster. This is nuts. All right, here we go. The reporter.
Reopen California schools are still in the early stages, but the governor announced yesterday it is possible students could go back as early as July. NBC4's Kim Tobin got reaction from teachers and school board members about that possibility.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Some leaders of the teachers union and the board of LAUSD say starting school in July would be a very ambitious goal. Meanwhile, some teachers say they want their summer, while others say they want to be back in the classroom.
Empty playgrounds, locked gates, and posted signs. LA schools have been shut down for the past several weeks.
I have 2 kids in LAUSD right now who are falling behind with distance learning, even with a teacher at home.
High school teacher Maria Guerra is teaching her students online. She says her fellow teachers had strong reactions when they heard Governor Gavin Newsom talking about schools opening early yesterday.
As early as late July, early August.
And I think everybody just needs to take a step back for a minute. He didn't make a specific plan.
The United Teachers of Los Angeles says any decisions will have to be bargained and negotiated.
I think we do need to err on the side of caution and to be really concerned about the health and safety of everyone. And
LAUSD school board members say they'll have to work with health specialists to see how they would keep students and staff safe.
When we think about the logistics of reopening schools in an urban center like LA, everything from testing, contact tracing, PPE for students and staff, deep cleans of schools.
The union negotiated for teachers to work 4 hours a day during online learning, but many say they work much more, and they want to be compensated if they head back early. Guerra says she might be in the minority, but she's ready to get back to the classroom for the sake of the kids.
I mean, it's nice to have a longer summer. I agree. But at the cost of students being far behind for another year, not catching up.
Now, the teachers union says they have
This is just so ridiculous, this woman.
no bargaining meeting set just yet. We have heard from one school district. Simi Valley says they'll start school as planned on August 12th unless the governor makes an executive order.
That is just so freaking bizarre. So bizarre. Let me get out of this. Hold on. So now we're seeing that the teachers, well, they're trying to negotiate. They're desperately trying to negotiate their relevancy. I got to get out of this. Hold on. There we go. They're desperately trying to negotiate their relevancy. So here we go. This is the story that we're stacking them here. This is the story that I wanted to cover, because Newsom now is going to close the beaches because apparently people were too close. Too close. All right, let's bring that back up here. Crowds gather at open Orange County beaches amid coronavirus. There we go. So here's the story from Friday to Sunday. About 80,000 people crowded the sand in Newport Beach, leading to an emergency city council meeting. The Newport City Council voted against a proposal that would have shut down the beaches for the next 3 weeks. Newsom lashed out at the images of crowded Southern California beaches in his news conference. Those images are an example of what not to see, what not to do if we're going to make meaningful progress. that we made in the last few weeks to extend the next number into the next number of weeks. So basically, he's punishing people now because now the beaches are closed again. And according to Newsome, that they're going to run this thing all the way up to November. That's kind of what he's saying. That's what he's saying. Now, to the north of Newsome, we have Jay Inslee, another communist dictator posing as a governor, an apparatchik of the state. So Inslee here is talking about, just make sure I have the right share. Hold on. There we go. Okay. Inslee says stay-at-home order will extend beyond May 4th. And he's not going to, they just keep moving the goalposts. They just keep moving this thing further down, further down, further down, further down. Like they want to keep their state closed all the way up and through the election. All right. This is really this is the tactic. This is what they're doing. And I'm going to show you why they're doing this. Because the quote unquote left is starting to really show their hand here. And are we surprised? Are we surprised at the tactic? This is about controlling, in large part, this is about controlling the election. Now, it's pretty clear that Washington, Oregon, Nevada, Colorado, and California are in a process of succession from the United States. They already have that 5-state pact. And whatever they're going to do together. They're going to agree upon it together. So here we go. The governor said Wednesday's news conference largely focused on the data that his office looks at daily. Now, all right. Remember how Washington State was the first state to report a case? And we looked at this. We looked at the numbers. I think it was around February 13th, if I'm not mistaken. So here we are, March 13th, April 13th, May 13th. We're going to be 3 months. In 2 weeks, we'll be 3 months into the first so-called reported coronavirus death, fatality in the state of Washington. Now, if you look at that 3-month arc as it relates to Wuhan, China, and the theoretical coronavirus deaths there, about half of Washington state should be wiped out by now. Pretty much. Maybe a quarter, but significant. And they haven't gotten there. Nobody's really talking about this. Nobody's really talking about how that first case reported, and again, I believe it was February 13th, how that first case pops up, and here we are almost 3 months later, and they have a incredibly low mortality rate as compared to the same statistical analysis and data that came out of China. And it's probably even worse in China because the Chinese just are not forthcoming with anything. But nobody's really talking about that. So based on the fact that they just are now arbitrarily shutting the state down, this is what's happening. I'll keep reading this here. Inslese announced partial reopening of outdoor recreation on Monday, which takes effect Tuesday, May 5th. Give the plebes a little bread, a few crumbs. Inslese said there are 5 buckets of metrics. 5 buckets of metrics. Okay. I'm going to go down to HEB today and get a bucket of metrics. His office looks at every day, sometimes hourly, to make decisions about the state's response to the spread of coronavirus. Those buckets are hospital capacity, disease activity, testing capacity, contact tracing, and risk to vulnerability. See, these are the buckets. The 5 buckets. Inslese showed 3 other slides with projections from the Institute of Disease Modeling, the Institute of Health Metrics and Evaluation, and the Yu-Yang-Gu projections. So we're using Chinese projections now. Okay. He emphasized that these data points aren't just numbers. They're people with sisters and brothers, moms and dads. Jesus. That's here we go, the big virtue signal. We have to go further to get these numbers down, to go to the next stage of the reopening our economy. And listen, Inslese is just going to listen to Bill Gates, okay? Come on now. You know, Bill Gates is going to line his pockets. He's going to fill his coffers so that Inslese can run and maintain his governorship for as long as Bill Gates needs him to. Washington State and Seattle is the flagship state for what's going to go down. He will do everything that Bill Gates tells him to do, including forced vaccinations. We have scoured the globe for this material on a daily basis. Did he check out Belarus? Did he check out Sweden? What about Nicaragua? I'm guessing that maybe he just kind of skipped over those countries. That's what I think. I don't think he fully scoured the globe. What about Africa? What about all the terrible cases coming out of Africa? Oh, I forgot. We're not really reading about that, are we? I guess he skipped Africa too. Selectively scouring the globe. I think that's really what the language should say. The governor said data will continue to lead decision-making. Data is not always right. Data is flawed. Data can be wrong, especially if it's based on projections or it's based on the accumulation of data that is being gathered together and collated to produce a certain vector or a certain projection. Inslese said that Wednesday marks the 100 days since the COVID-19 was first identified in Washington State. That case was first reported 100 days. There we go, 100 days. In Snohomish County with the patient recovering at Providence Medical Center. Department of Emergency Management released a video on Wednesday looking back at the past 100 days. Oh, yeah. All right. So how did it go? Did you get a lot of death up there? High mortality rate? Maybe that's one of the buckets he kind of failed to look into. So it's pretty clear now that what we're witnessing for all, listen, I'm not saying that this corona thing is fake, okay? I'm not saying that, by the way. I'm saying that it is something that we don't understand, and I don't think even the medical professionals understand. Because there are people that have come down with this thing, and whatever variation or mutation or permutation or however the exosomal excretion of the body is processing this stuff, and some of it is really, really nasty. Really nasty. And some of the symptoms are very consistent. Loss of taste, loss of smell, which, by the way, happened with my father when he got sick back in 2009, 2010. Dizziness, lightheadedness, inflammation, aching, heart palpitations, heart racing, swelling of the brain, pain in the kidneys, pain in the joints. So these are symptoms that people have shown, whatever this thing is, okay, whatever it is. And apparently, it kind of, comes back and morphs and does another cycle or two, right? So I'm not saying that this is not, that there isn't a there, okay? There probably is a there, but it's not the there that they're talking about. And a vaccine is not going to, I think, end or terminate whatever it is that these people are experiencing. And some people get versions of it, or they have something and they're able to transmute it and get healthier. I was really, really sick back in November. And I think even about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I felt like something coming on, and I was able to stave it off with a lot of vitamin C and, the usual cast of characters. It worked. I think that we're going to have to wrap our heads around the fact that we're going to be in an environment now, whether it's the application of 5G and cooking our cells, or whether it's some weird kind of hyper contagion that might be nano activated, Well, whatever these things are, we're going to have to understand that this is the environment we're going to be living in now. And I don't think quarantining is really going to help. I don't think shutting down the economy is really going to help. I think this is much, much bigger in a lot of ways. So I think what's going to happen is that people are going to have to take care of their bodies, which of course the CDC never talks about. Fauci never talks about this. He never talks about a strengthened immune system. They never talk about diet. They never talk about eliminating things to deal with some of the underlying conditions, which seems like it impacts people. Things like diabetes. You want to eliminate your sugar. All the things that you want to fine tune the body with. And they want to get rid of meat, by the way, because I believe meat protein is very helpful in terms of having a very strong immune response. We can see that that's happening, but they never talk about this stuff. They never talk about how you should theoretically really treat your body like a temple. They never talk about that. Because when something goes wrong, they want you to go to their temple. And their temple, of course, being the hospitals and the temples of contagion. I read a story today about a guy who went into the hospital for something wrong with his spine. He came out and he had these wicked coronavirus symptoms. So he went in moderately healthy, came out sick as a dog. And even prior to coronavirus, how many stories have we been reading about over the last couple of years where people go into hospitals and they get MRSA or they suffer from sepsis? I think these are highly underreported stories. Highly underreported. And so I think people have a great degree of trepidation about going to hospitals in general. But I think ultimately what they're going to do is they're going to kind of eliminate hospitals. Some version of it, they're going to eliminate it. And even doctors, I think it's all going to be kind of like, AI or virtual. And you'll meet with a virtual doctor, telemedicine. You won't see anybody. If you have to go somewhere, it'll be kind of a limited experience. Surgical procedures, I don't know where surgical procedures are headed. I don't. I think they're going to come back online once everything starts up, but I can see where that they would have very, very limited surgical procedures moving towards the future, because I feel like, again, the ultimate goal here is to reduce the population, to get the population down. This is the first step of population reduction. And I think medicine is going to be wildly transformed, and it's going to be connected to big tech. So we're going to big tech and big medicine, that unholy merging of the two. And I could see who is the IBM, what they've been working on for a long time, the IBM app, who supposedly beat the Jeopardy champ at Jeopardy. I could see that app could play a huge role in being sort of like this global doctor. And of course, we've already talked about in many, many shows, AI, deep learning, machine learning, where theoretically they'll be able to diagnose and do all kinds of stuff, and you won't even need a human. Watson, Dr. Watson. Oh, remember that? Dr. Watson, Sherlock Holmes. Dr. Watson will become Dr. Watson. Yeah, absolutely. So huge sea change, massive, massive, massive sea change. And I think some of the blowback will have to do with the fact that our medical professionals have been put at risk. That's going to be, I think, some of the data that'll come back. And so in order to lower the risk to actual humans, I think we're going to see artificial intelligence and even some robotics come into play. And if there are surgeries, I'm sure that it will be more like the doctor in a remote setting, in a remote location, operating arms. And I think the whole theater, the whole surgical theater is going to, drastically change, because when these changes happen, they have new technologies that come into play. And they're able to sell and advance these technologies, move them forward. This is where kind of the war, the medical war that was happening in the late 1900s, not late 1900s. I'm sorry, like between 1900 and 1930. Those 2 decades were in the 1910s and 1920s were the battleground of medicine. And you had people like Harry Hoxsey, who had a number of cancer clinics that he had set up around the country and had a fairly decent success rate around treating cancer. Now, he wasn't perfect by any stretch, but he was up against the growing powers of the American Medical Association, who were just starting to come online then. And the American Medical Association was set up specifically to mandate where medicine and where allopathy was going to go moving forward in the 20th century, because they were really into medical machines at that time, things like iron lungs and ultimately X-ray machines. So there was a whole industry that was propped up and ready to go, and the AMA was there to basically wall off any other any alternatives for medicine and say that this is the model moving forward. That's what they were there to do. So there were significant medical wars that took place during the 1900s, 1920s. And Hoxie actually won a case against the head of the AMA, who was smearing him publicly. He actually won a case against that individual, and he was awarded a judgment, a monetary judgment, and then the head of the AMA at that time actually had to step down. So, but we're in another sea change, and the reason I'm bringing it up has to do with technology. We have the beginning of the industrialization of the West during the 1900s and the 1920s, and every single industry was part of that, including medicine. So they had to support the development of industrialized medicine. And here we are at the precipice of the of Toffler's third wave, and a whole new kind of barrage or a whole new phalanx of technology getting ready to be introduced into our lives. And so when these changes occur, there has to have some kind of revolutionary cycle. And I think we're beginning to see that now. We're actually watching nurses getting managed out. We're watching getting furloughed. We're just seeing sort of this model being taken away, like other models, not just the medical model. And even doctors are going to they'll be replaced. They'll be replaced by the AI, the virtual assistant, Dr. Watson. I'm not saying all humans will go away in this arena. They'll need some humans. If you're going to get a surgery, you're going to need a doctor on the other end, basically, playing the arcade game on your organs. But this is where this is headed, right? We're in a massive, massive period of change. Huge. They're deciding they're going to flip the switch in society right now, the entire planet, right? This is where we are. Now, there are some people who are very adamant over the fact that we're not going back. We're not going back. And they have very, very specific reasons why. And let me show you who one of them is and what they're sharing. Emily just sent me a text. She's probably not watching the show. She said our petty dictator just closed all the beaches. Mm-hmm. Here she is, Susan Rice. It's a good thing that there's not another Rice in the Trump administration. Before there was Susan Rice, there was Condoleezza Rice. They're both disasters. But, they're not even related. Anyway, Susan Rice wound up going to Washington. She had maybe about, $550,000 in her bank account or whatever, which is, not anything to complain about. And by the time she left D.C., I think she was worth about $14 million. Comes from a family who is deeply, deeply involved in politics. If I'm not mistaken, I think she might have been born in Iran, if I'm not mistaken. I have to fact check that. But let's see what, let me just make sure I have the right setting here. Yeah, we're good. Let's see what Susan Rice has to say about our particular crisis.
That necessary. He and some of his top advisors are sounding ready to put social distancing and the pandemic behind them. Joining us now, Susan Rice, the former National Security Advisor to President Obama. She's also the author of the book, Tough Love, My Story of the Things Worth Fighting For. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us. I want you, first of all, to watch and to listen what Jared Kushner,
Wolf Blitzer, look, they're both wearing purple. Do you see this? This is not some little coincidence or happenstance, right? So we're in the midst of the purple revolution. We're in a color revolution, okay? And it started really with the death of Prince, which I think is quite interesting. I believe Prince was a sacrificial offering for the purple revolution. And remember when Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton showed up after she lost the election, they were both wearing purple. And purple has been a theme now through ever since Trump got elected. Purple has been a backdrop, and this is not by happenstance. And even look at the background of what CNN has here on the frame set. It's purple. So they're really trying to subconsciously drill this idea of the purple revolution. And what is, I'm glad that Wolf Blitzer is quite old. And I know there's another Wolf Blitzer in the waiting, but it's like, I'm kind of over Wolf Blitzer. Aren't you over Wolf Blitzer? I'm over Wolf Blitzer. And hopefully Wolf Blitzer will be over in the not so distant future. All right, let's see what the great Susan Rice has to say.
The president's son-in-law, senior advisor, had to say this morning about the Trump administration's response to this crisis. Listen.
The federal government rose to the challenge, and this is a great success story. We released the strategy document earlier this week. It was an 8-step plan, and
there's another robot.
7 of those steps have been completed. I think you'll see by June a lot of the country should be back to normal, and the hope is that by July the country's really rocking again.
Ambassador Rice, what's your reaction to that?
It's ridiculous, and it would be laughable if it weren't so deadly serious. I don't know how anybody with a straight face can call this a great success and declare this a mission accomplished moment when more than 60,000 Americans are dead, when more than 1 million are infected. And this is the beginning, not the end, of the coronavirus pandemic in the United States. Dr. Fauci, whose judgment I trust implicitly, has just said that he believes a second wave in the fall is inevitable. And that's the pattern of pandemics of the past.
So Fauci's already telling everybody, get ready, you're going to get sick again. It's inevitable. Why is it inevitable? Yeah, because he's cooking this shit up with his buddy Bill Gates. That's why it's inevitable. He knows. He knows.
So we are far from being able to declare victory. And in any event, there's no victory when the losses on the battlefield in less than 2 months exceed all of those through the entirety of the Vietnam War.
That's ridiculous. That is absolutely just fucking ridiculous. How many people die every year due to the flu? Okay. Do the numbers. Maybe they exceed the losses of the Vietnam War. And all deaths are not created equal, by the way. Not all deaths are created equal. Some deaths have a deeper, wider, more damaging and traumatic resonance than others. These are, people dying in the Vietnam War versus, whatever, numbers they're ginning up, plus the flu, plus whatever kinds of, lung bursting procedures that are being performed on by doctors with these ventilators that are literally going to just take them right. I mean, we can't have a true and specific number around this. And for her to come out and say this is completely disingenuous. Completely and utterly disingenuous. And by the way, let's say somebody, and again, I'm kind of a pragmatist on some level. Let's say somebody is in their 80s and they have an underlying condition and they've been going to the doctors and they take the flu shot and then all of a sudden they die because whatever, right? Whether it's the flu or any number of factors or whatever kind of permutation of the coronavirus, like they're 80 years old, they've lived, okay? They've lived. I'm not saying that their grandkids or their kids aren't going to miss them, but you talk about an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid plucked out of bumfuck America somewhere, sent over to Vietnam, shot up, killed, his life not even given a chance, fighting a corporate war, fighting a war to bring heroin essentially over to the United States. So the United States, or not the United States, but the intelligence agencies could then take over the heroin trade from the French. And not only that, but an exercise in deep generational demoralization. All right. So for her to equate deaths during the Vietnam War and deaths due to coronavirus is absolutely and utterly slandering the men, and to some extent even the women who fought in the war and gave their lives for a bullshit fucking war. Okay. And he's just going to sit there and agree with her. Sorry.
26 plus million Americans are out of work. You know, the GDP.
Well, yeah, they're out of work because we shut the fucking country down. You're going to blame that on Trump? He was doing what Fauci, your God, told him to do. But now that's not a good thing. Right now she's making a case like this is a no-win for Trump. I mean, do you see how they're boxing Trump in here? There's all these deaths, theoretical deaths. And then there's the loss of the economy. There's the loss of the economy because he did what his advisors, the guy that you sign off on, told him to do.
Is declining at a rate of almost 5%. That number is going to go way down. Our economy is suffering extraordinarily. Yeah,
her economy is not suffering extraordinarily. I can tell you that right now. She made $15 million in 8 years, basically parading around and flying around the world and who knows what else. So her economy is not suffering. I hate our economy. Our economy. Let's be clear. If this guy was worth his salt, which he's not, he would have said, I'd like to just stop you for a second. How are you doing financially? Are you doing okay during the coronavirus? I see. Well, that's good. I'm glad that you're doing fine. So let's separate out that there are two economies going on. There's your economy, and then there's the economy of people who are just trying to get by every single day. Would you agree to that? How does it feel? How do you feel blessed? Do you feel blessed to have, enough resources to last this out and whatever else is coming? What would you say to the American people who would feel like there's a disparity between their wage gap and what they've made and what you accrued? What would you say to them? But this fuck will never say anything like that. I'm sorry. I'm pissed. I get pissed.
And human beings, most importantly, are dying and suffering and losing. So we need to come together, Wolf, with a realistic assessment of where we are. This is not the time for politics. This is not the time.
If it's not the time for politics, then shut up and get out.
For victory laps. This is a time to buckle up and realize that we're at an inflection point. We're either going to continue to take the steps that are necessary to keep Americans safe, or we're going to prematurely declare.
This is the Mummenschanz fascism by proxy syndrome that Jared Foltz so articulately laid out. There she is.
Declare victory, open everything before circumstances warrant, and we're going to be right back in the barrel in a worse situation in the months to come.
You've just written an article, an opinion op-ed in the New York Times, and you say it's not enough to just get back to normal. You also write this. The coronavirus has laid bare our domestic divisions, unequal economy, and glaring racial and socioeconomic disparities.
But let's not make it about politics. Let's not make it about, and yet she is offering up a political opinion. Okay? These people blow my mind.
As well as the fragility of our democracy. Ambassador, how should the United States use this crisis right now to address some of those problems that you mentioned fully exposed by the virus?
Well, Wolf, I say that going back to normal isn't acceptable because, as we've seen, what was normal has been extraordinarily costly and deadly for all Americans.
So now we're politicizing this, right? That the normal that existed pre-coronavirus was flawed, that it represented a system that was unequal, that it had mechanisms inside the system that were devised to keep the people down, that there would be a greater disparity of wealth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Which, by the way, she seemed to do quite well when she was in office, and her boss, Barack Obama, his wealth went through the frickin' roof, okay? Through the roof. That system, that normal, seemed to have worked pretty well for them. Am I right? I mean, that normal before was really fantastic for these people. Why wouldn't they want to return to that normal? It made them wealthy. It gave them power. They spent 8 years in the White House, that version of normal. But what they want is they want a new normal where they're going to be back in power, doing what they're going to do, and they're going to want to remake the entire system in the guise of fairness, equality, the greater good.
And yet what we've also learned from this experience, and for many of us, it wasn't a learning, it was just making it very obvious to those perhaps who didn't see it, is that we have a society that remains extremely unequal in racial and socio. She
is the epitome of unequal. Unequal. But let's not politicize this now. Let's not, the talking out of both sides of the mouth will drive you fucking crazy. Let's not politicize this. We all going to come together, and yet you're politicizing it. If you wanted to all come together, you'd say, I support the president. I support the president because I don't want to politicize this. He's doing the best he can. He's under enormous pressure. I wouldn't want to be in his shoes. Or maybe she would. Maybe she would want to be in his shoes. But no, we're going to bring up injustice, inequality, blah, 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 blah.
Economic terms in so many other ways. And yet, as we have experienced throughout our history, from frankly, look at the Great Depression, look at World War II, look at the 1960s, out of every moment of crisis, we have found
out of every moment of crisis, a greater level of tyranny exerts itself.
A way to do things differently and better. The Works Progress Administration, the Civilian Conservation Corps in the Great Depression, the GI Bill after World War II, the Great Society, and the expansion and insurance of voting rights for all Americans.
It's great. These are things I've been talking about now for the last, month, 2 months, started with the WPA and going into Johnson and the Great Society. And she's championing those things. Now, the WPA, again, I'm going to say that, created a lot of great roads, a lot of great bridges, some real spiffy dams. I'm not going to completely, dam the dams, all right? But as a result of that, the government got much bigger, much, much bigger. And during that time, we see the birth of the corporation. And the corporation is created out of the WPA to be used as kind of a finite entity. But of course, once they opened those corporations, they just couldn't give them up. It's a gift that kept on giving.
Americans in the 1960s. This is a moment not only of crisis, but inherent in that crisis is opportunity. And we need to take steps to broaden our social safety net to ensure that the most vulnerable have the health care, have the education, have the housing that they need. But in the immediate term, because many of those things are going to take time and be
watch this
ambitious, I recommend 2 critical steps that Congress could take in the next legislation that it passes. One is to ensure that every American has the ability to vote safely in our November election. We saw the fiasco.
You know what that means? They want mail-in ballots.
Fiasco in Wisconsin, which has cost scores of lives.
Oh, really? Scores of lives? Scores of lives.
And we have a real challenge to ensure that voters are able to access the ballot by mail.
By mail.
By longer periods of early voting, by safer polling stations. And that is the job of Congress to ensure.
So they're using this crisis as a solution, and the solution for the voting fiasco that awaits us is let's just let people vote from home because it's safe. And you can control an election that way. They're doing everything in their power to fuck up this election and try to defeat Donald Trump for another 4 years. And you can say it's all kabuki theater, right? And that he'll step down and something will happen and blah, 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 blah. Okay. That may be the case. All right. But this is what these people are advocating. They're advocating this.
And secondly, Congress can make a down payment on this effort to build a more equitable society by expanding national service, and in particular by creating something called a health force, which can begin by employing unemployed Americans, students and the like, to be contact tracers.
Oh, look at her smile. Look at her smile. Employ them to be contact tracers, the health force. Look at her. Look at that. Look at that little ET. Look at that little gray. She's smiling. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We get to have our little Stasi out there. You've been unemployed, but guess what? You can rat on people now and get paid for it. Look at her. She's gleeful.
At this moment, when 100 to 300,000 of them are going to be needed for us to
driving policy.
Test, trace, and open up safely.
We're going to continue this conversation. Ambassador Rice, thank you so much.
Wolf Blitzer. All right. Sorry, I got a little heated there. Let's see where you guys are at. Paid snitches. Our own Cheka, how nice. Let's see, what else do we have here? Health force. Yeah, health force. Let's be real. Sweden experiment proves low density populations are healthy. Yep. Brandy says we can go to grocery stores and home improvement stores. We can go out and vote. Absolutely. So glad I don't watch TV. I filter it for you, Shanna. Every American, how about every U.S. citizen of voting age? What else do we have here? Maury Gandalf has made new friends. Let's see. What else do we have? Is Maury in today? Hey, here's Maury. Good to see you, man. Been missing you. I will say it again. Every time I hear these statist authoritarians speak, the music from Clockwork Orange plays in my mind. That's Michael. Brandy says they can't get their story straight. The president didn't act quick enough. Oh, we shut down the economy. Exactly. This is the total doublespeak, right? This is the doublespeak that that Winston Smith basically exposes in 1984. It's the doublespeak. Anyway, I just had to play that so we could dispel that. To dispel it. Where do I want to go next? Let's see. What do we have here? I'd really like to talk to that mayor, Grants. That would be cool. That would be cool. All right. So I want to play you this this piece by James Comey was on a talk show, and some of you have already seen this video, and this has to do with Michael Flynn. And the Michael Flynn story is pretty big. It's a pretty big story because Michael Flynn was set up. He was set up by two people. First of all, Michael Flynn worked for Obama. And Obama wanted to probably do some shit. And Michael Flynn didn't want to do it. He's like, no, I'm not going to do it. He fired him. Obama was good at firing generals and admirals. Like, he did a major purge at a high level. He cut massively. He got his own people in at a high level. That was around 2013, I think, or 2014, when there was the big military purge. And it was before, I believe, Hillary Clinton left the Obama administration. But Flynn was dismissed later on by Obama. So before Trump became president, he'd been elected, had not been sworn in yet. Jared Kushner asked Michael Flynn to approach the Russians because there was a significant vote coming up for Israel in the UN. And Michael Flynn was tasked with going to Russia to find out where they were going to vote on this particular vote. It was one of the resolutions, human rights stuff. So Michael Flynn, being somebody who's from the military now, the military is a freak about protocol, by and large. He goes to Obama and says, "Look, I gotta go to Russia, and I gotta have this meeting. We've got to find out where they're at on this particular subject." And Obama says, "Oh, sure. Go. Yeah, go. Right, go." So based on the permission from Obama, Flynn goes. And then what happens is that he gets caught on the backside saying something to Pence, who I don't trust, by the way, saying something to Pence, which contradicted a previous statement. So at that point, he had to resign. They were forcing him to resign. I think he was set up by Jared Kushner as well, by the way. So now what's happened is that it's coming out that indeed Michael Flynn was set up. This theoretically should be very significant news. Very significant news. But the arrogance and the absolute corruption of power that exists inside of these agencies that are here to supposedly protect us is on full display in this interview with James Comey. It's fairly shocking in a lot of ways. But I'm going to play it because he's an enabler. He's a big time enabler. A big time enabler, gatekeeper, and a blocker. Gatekeeper, blocker. I was almost going to say blank blocker, but that would almost be sort of giving him too much credit. All right, here we go. Let's play this. Where are we going here? Hold on. I gotta get out of this. Right here. Here we go. All right, so this is from a show called 92Y New York City Sunday. Some of you have probably already seen this. Have a listen.
You look at this White House now, and it's hard to imagine two FBI agents ending up in the same room. How did that happen?
I sent them. Something I probably wouldn't have done or maybe gotten away with in a more organized investigation, a more organized administration, in the George W. Bush administration, for example, or the Obama administration. The protocol, two men that all of us have perhaps increased appreciation for.
This is a soulless moment. Look at this. This is a soulless moment right here. This image is very revealing. Look at that face.
Over the last 2 years. And in both of those administrations, there was process. And so if the FBI wanted to send agents into the White House itself to interview a senior official, you would work through the White House counsel, and there'd be discussions and approvals, and who would be there. And I thought, it's early enough, let's just send a couple guys over.
You look at this White House now, and it's hard to imagine 2 FBI agents ending up in the same room. How did that happen?
I sent them. Something I probably wouldn't have done or maybe gotten away with in a more organized investigation, a more organized administration, in the George W. Bush administration, for example, or the Obama administration. The protocol, 2 men that all of us have perhaps increased appreciation for over the last 2 years. And in both of those administrations, there was process. And so if the FBI wanted to send agents into the White House itself to interview a senior official, you would work through the White House counsel, and there'd be discussions and approvals, and who would be there. And I thought, it's early enough, let's just send a couple guys over.
If it's early enough, let's just send a couple guys over. So basically what he's saying is that he was taking advantage of the fact that there was a new administration in place that he didn't like, that he felt as though they were involved in something, well, shall we say scandalous, unlike the Bush administration, who basically ran fucking 9/11, okay? Let's not forget that. You know, Obama essentially running Fast and Furious and the absolute destruction and desecration of Libya, staging a coup in the Ukraine. I mean, these are all really wonderful administrations, right? They deserved his respect. They got respect. But here, he's just going to send guys in. He's not going to tell Trump there's no process because they don't deserve it. He doesn't respect them. He thinks that he's doing a great service by inserting FBI agents without telling anybody. And that's what he did. That's what he did. I mean, these people are playing fast and loose with our reality. You know, I mean, this is, I don't know if it's unconstitutional. It probably is. I haven't looked it up, but it's just certainly like, so, it's immoral. It's immoral. You know, why don't you go through the same process that you did with the other presidents? Oh, I know why. Because you wanted to figure out if they could catch him with something. And why was he doing it? Who was paying him? It's ridiculous. So you're going to hear more about this in the days to come, but I'm sure that we'll be dealing with more coronavirus drama instead of getting to the bottom of this. And this is really this is it. This is the Gordian knot. The Flynn thing is the Gordian knot. And if they can really establish this in a way, and they can really connect the dots, and if Barr can get off his fat ass and actually do something, that there may actually be some movement here. Maybe, but at the very least now it's coming to light. Finally. All right, I'm going to leave you with something good today. I'm going to leave you with something good and better. Good and better. Not everybody is corrupt. Not everybody is asleep. Not everybody has been seduced by power and greed. There are still some people who have an idea, who have an ideal, some people who believe that that truth actually matters and that have an eye on the horizon. And of course, we have to vet them as we go through the process of kind of revelating these people. But I came across this today, and let me pop this thing up here. It's very, very interesting. Where are we? It's a very interesting piece. And I don't know who this person is. It's just, his name is Andy Biggs. He's a Republican from Arizona. And he has some interesting thoughts here, which I find that I'm in agreement with. It's time to quarantine Anthony Fauci and Dr. Birx. I'm not going to play this whole thing. It's an hour and 50 minutes. I think you've got a couple of people on there, Tom Bevan, Brian Benberg, Andy Biggs. Give them the gold watch and say, thank you, exit stage left. It's time for them to go out and be quarantined without a government paycheck and see how they like it. We'll see how they like it, because that's what you've got. You've got two classes of people in America today. You've got the people who are the bureaucrats. Their policies have produced the division in this country, that produce an economic depression in this country. They've basically created societal problems. Everything from more suicides, more suicide hotline calls, domestic violence, child abuse, increased use of drugs and alcohol. They basically sanctioned elimination. And if it's not full elimination, at least a curtailing of our rights. And basically, they said we would rather commit economic suicide than have freedom and let people govern themselves and take the risk of freedom. And then we could have put in reasonable policies to protect the most vulnerable. We know who the most vulnerable was from the get-go. We knew it was the elderly. We knew it was people with these types of morbidities and health problems. But instead, they said, let's quarantine the healthy as well. You have this quasi-martial law feel going on. It's exactly what's going on. Exactly. And people are waking up. They're waking up. And I'm going to come right out and say this, that if this continues in particular states, right, like Washington or California or Oregon or Colorado or Nevada, or maybe some other states like perhaps Michigan, let's say, there's going to be issues. There are going to be problems. And the first line where those problems will manifest themselves will be the interaction with police. Because I'm watching very closely the temperature raise around the people that are enforcing these so-called laws. And people are starting to really wake up and say, who are these people? Why are they given so much power? You know, in a crisis, people, institutions reveal themselves, because the veneer of just going along and getting along and continuing the process of the system breaks down. And then you get to see how people react. They show their true colors. We're seeing that. It's not hard right now. So I just saw a video of these two cops, on a beach in Oxnard on horses, hassling these two 90-year-old people because they were sitting on effing lawn chairs, not even big ones, small little aluminum beach chairs. They made them take those chairs off the beach and leave the beach. Okay. This is the world we're living in. I mean, if they're sitting on the beach without the chairs, they're okay. They're 90 years old and they're there on their horses telling them to get up and go. And the people were not happy. They were not happy. They were videotaping them. They were getting on the cops about kicking, these seniors off the beach. I saw a video this morning. I tried to find it. I can't find it though. And it was a mother in Wisconsin, and the cops came over to give her a summons because her kid was playing at somebody else's house. She would not give them her name. She said, I don't have to do that. It was really funny. The cop said, okay, well, what's your first name and middle initial? And I'm like, it's like they want the name. She said, I'm not going to give you my name. I don't have to do that, which is true, by the way, unless you're being arrested, charged with a crime. I'm not going to give you my name. Then the cop says, okay, well, give me your first name. And they get real forceful. Give me your first name and your middle initial. She doesn't do that. She says, okay, we'll just make a note that you're being non-cooperative. I'm telling you, they keep this thing up, especially astrologically, when we have Mars and Aries getting ready to square off against Pluto and Saturn and even Jupiter. Man, it's going to get hot. I'm telling you, it's going to get hot. And when we get into, August, the first part of August, Venus comes into Cancer. We got a cross. We got a cardinal cross happening at that time with all those players in the mix. Yeah, boy. If I was a law enforcement person right now, I'd be really conscious about how I'm treating people. I would. I would start to really practice respect and fairness. Just trust me. Trust me. Because it could get very intense. And people they're not happy. And when we're talking like, you know, moms and stuff, right? Housewives, moms, shop owners who have salons, you know, a mayor in a small town in New Mexico. So we're here now, right? We're here now. We're in a very liminal time, and we're in this kind of in-between stage or phase. And things are going to open up in some places, in other places they won't. And I feel like the next few months are going to be really important in general, you know, like get your affairs together, you know, figure out where you want to be. If you want to stay in the place that you're in, you know, you may as well like make it the best as possible. Understand the state that you're in. Understand the state that you're in. Understand where you're living. Understand the conditions of the place that you're in. And you have to plan accordingly. If you're going to stay in California, right, and hang out there, you better figure out that they're not going to open the damn state up till November, or maybe even beyond. So you need to figure that out, right? I ran across another thing. This guy who has a online furniture company in Fresno, California. He was doing curbside service because he was basically shutting down. He had a furniture store. So he's selling everything. He's trying to liquidate his assets. They fined him 2 times, once for $1,000 and once for $5,000, because he had curbside service and trying to eliminate his product vis-a-vis his online store. Okay. Just wrap your head around that. So if you're living in a place like that, you need to understand that. And then you need to adjust the volume accordingly. If you're going to stay there, you better figure things out. If you're living in another part of the country, like apparently South Dakota, hey, you get to opt out of the vaccine thing. Like I would get my ass to South Dakota, like real fast. If like that was important to you and that governor is saying, this is what we're laying down, I would do the beeline to South Dakota. That's just me. That's just me. And I'm, you know, this place isn't perfect, but it's good enough for now. It's good enough for now. It's not perfect, good enough for now. Not as quite as like radically free as South Dakota, but certainly not California Uber Alice. So we have some time here in the next few months, probably until August. That's what I'm thinking. And you can make some moves during this time, both moves physically, geographically, and moves inside of yourself. You know, so there's going to be a time where things are going to come back online. People are going to have, you know, some income, not a ton. So I would suggest that over the course of the next couple months, if there's anything you need to get rid of and sell, this would be the time to do it, so that you can eliminate some of your, you know, whatever stuff you have around, and then try to turn them into assets. This would be a good time to do it. People need to start looking at this over the next, what's really important? What do you really need? Where do you want to be? Who do you want to be with? What kind of life do you want to have? These are the big questions. And this is, I think, the playbook moving forward, because they're not going to let up. They're just not going to let up. You know, the 2020s are going to be about remaking the world. They've made it very clear. This is the decade to remake the world. This is the decade to create the Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 model. Now, there are unseen allies, obviously, that can be very, very helpful in a lot of ways. Let's not ever discount them. But really, it starts with you and what kind of life you want to have and how you're going to live your life and the decisions that you make, and how important ultimately it is to begin to craft a sovereign relationship with yourself and with others. And I'm not saying you have to go down the common law chute, you know, because that's very complicated, very, very complicated, very time consuming. Your time may be better spent understanding the principles on a spiritual level and then practicing them and implementing them. Okay. I hope I gave you enough things to think about today. I got a little heated there. Just got a little heated on the Wolf Blitzer front because the manipulation is so obvious. It's so obvious. And they say it with such care and compassion and empathy and sincerity until, of course, she breaks into laughter with the contact tracers. I guess Polly has a video out about the contact tracers. You may want to check that out. She always does really good work. All right, let me check back in with you guys in Chatlandia. Let's see what's up. Oh, frozen. There we go. We have market down. Let's see. Wolf has been the same liar since the 1990s. Yes, I agree. He got really famous during the Gulf War, didn't he? Sue says, my plan is eventually to move to Southeast, South Carolina, Florida, or have family. I'm alone out in California. All families on the East Coast. I'm sorry, Sue. Let's see what else we have. Can't move, forced to stand my ground. Do whatever you got to do. It is hard to sell houses now. This is true. It is not impossible, though. And there's going to be a period here during the summertime that you may be able to do something with your place. Sue says that you have to stay in California. If that's, and if that's the case, as if we could, Robert, what does that mean? Look, some people can, some people can. Look, if you're going to stay in a place, I'm not saying not to stay in a place. If you stay in a place, just know the state you're staying in. You know the rules of engagement. I'm not saying that you have to go move to South Dakota or move to some other place. Some people can, and some people will. I mean, this is the way it is. And the people that can't, just know where you're at, know what you're up against. I'm not saying you have to go, but you have to figure it out, right? There's just more variables that you have to take into account. And if you don't take them into account, then it's going to get very difficult. All I'm preaching here is like the presence of mind and having a mental approach, having a mindset. So if you're going to stay someplace, understand what you're up against and then live accordingly, figure it out. It may be more difficult, but maybe you'll learn something. Maybe that's part of the deal that, through the difficulty and the pressure and the constraints or whatever, you'll learn something. Maybe you'll learn something really great. I'm not saying that it's a death sentence. Okay. But if you feel like you need to move or want to move, I think there's a window, and maybe you want to get it, maybe even wanting to leave a place for a certain period of time. Look, Venus is going to be in Gemini. The true node is going to be in Gemini. There's going to be movement. There is going to be movement. People are going to move. People are going to move around the country because we're going from Cancer, where everybody's been in their homes, to Gemini, where there's movement. All right. So the other side of that with Gemini is know your area. Gemini represents the world around you, right? Your community, your city, your county. So there's an application there for even people that want to or need to stay in a certain place or have to stay in a certain place. Okay. I'm doing my best to be fair, which is what I try to do. So Christine, I get it, but maybe you'll learn something spectacular while you are where you are. All right. I'm out here for today. Thank you everybody for supporting the show. We've definitely seen an uptick in the subscriptions, which has been great. That's fantastic. I really appreciate the support. And tomorrow we're going to have Sonia Barrett on. Should be a really great show. And then I'm going to look at the 64th anniversary of the first polio vaccine and look at the fallout from some of that vaccine in the immediates when it actually happened and occurred on the heels of the vaccine itself. So again, I thank you for your support. I thank you for your camaraderie here virtually and even in the non-virtual space. And I hope we all get to see each other again in the fall. I'm looking into that. For me, Jasper, use your head to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. We'll be back tomorrow with the Friday Forecast. Bye for now.